We are lucky that there are still people here to listen us. Welcome to today's panel, discussion on regional stock exchange, a topic that is indeed increasingly relevant as capital markets continue to globalize and regional players work to expand their visibility and impact. My name is Veziroğlu. I am a board member of CFA Society Istanbul, and I will be moderating this session. Professionally, I work as a portfolio manager at TEB Asset Management, and today I'm truly honored to be here with such a distinguished group of panelists. Today we will explore the challenges and opportunities facing regional stock exchange, and we are joined by three outstanding panelists, each bringing a unique perspective from exchange leadership to institutional investment. Nino Kurdiani is the acting CEO of Georgian Stock Exchange and a CFA charter holder. She has 2 decades of experience in the financial industry spanning executive roles, academia, and consulting. She is also the founder of the Financial Excellence Academy, deeply involved in financial education and market development in Georgia. Ruslan Khalilov is the CEO of Baku Stock Exchange and a CFA charter holder as well. He brings rich experience from both public and private sector, including leadership roles at Pasha Bank, the Islamic Development Bank, and the State Oil Fund of Azerbaijan. His background in investment banking and private equity adds strategic depth to his role in capital market development. And finally, Yağız Oral is the CEO of TEB Asset Management, one of Turkey's leading portfolio management companies and a subsidiary of BNP Paribas. With nearly 2 decades of experience in portfolio management and institutional investment, he has held senior roles at BNP Paribas Cardiff and HSBC Asset Management. His insights bring a valuable investor's perspective on the role of the regional stock exchange in capital market development. And also, moreover, I would like to thank Yağız for being one of sponsors for today. Before we begin, let us hear from you first. We have 3 Slido questions. We can have the QR code for Slido questions. Let me wait a couple of seconds for scanning the first QR. Okay, we had the first question. What do you see as the biggest challenge for regional stock exchange? Low liquidity, limited number of listed companies, lack of investor awareness, regulatory or infrastructure barriers. Let's wait a couple of seconds for your answers. If it is ready, we can have the answers. Okay. It looks like low liquidity is seen as the biggest challenge for regional stock exchange by most of our audience. We can have the second question, if it is ready. The second question is, which type of investor is most critical for the growth of regional exchange? Retail investors, domestic institutional investors, foreign institutional investors, government-related, and pension funds. Let's wait a couple of seconds again. I think we can have the answer. Okay. Here, foreign investors and domestic institutional investors dominate the answer. And we can have the last question. And the last question is, what would make regional stock exchange more attractive to global investors? Better corporate governance and reporting, broader and more diverse listings, enhanced market access and technology, stronger regional cooperation. We can wait a couple of seconds again. Okay, here most of the audience answered for governance and reporting. Thank you for your answers. Maybe those are going to be useful for our first expired speakers. Let's now begin with our first round of panelist remarks. To start our discussion, I would like to invite Ms. Nino Kurdiani to share her insights on the current landscape and developments in Georgia's capital markets, as well as the importance of stock exchange for capital market development. You're going to have some slides, and they will be reflected.
I hope. Okay, first of all, I will start with my gratitude, especially to CFA Society Istanbul and particularly İlke for having me here. It's a really great honor for me to be here. Wonderful. Let me read my notes because I know that I should be brief, and I'll try to be fast. I'll be faster, and I will not miss any important point. So Georgia is a small country, small economy, but with stable financial system. GDP per capita is slightly higher than $9,000. Country's credit rating is BB, with no changes over the past 6 years. Economic activity is concentrated in a few sectors, particularly in real estate. The national currency is Georgian lari, which operates under floating exchange rate regime. While short-term fluctuations occur, the long-term trends are remaining quite stable. You can see there. You can also observe a gradual reduction in the monetary policy rate, indicating the expansionary policy from central bank. Government debt increased during COVID pandemic, but has since stabilized, remaining below 50 or even 45% of GDP. Looking at presented data, you'll see that past couple of years have been especially strong for Georgian economy, its exchange rate and capital market. The growth has been supported by technical assistance from donor countries and international financial institutions, as well as influx of migrants. We are now trying to make the most of the moment and continue developing from this higher basis. Now we can switch the slide. Thank you. Georgia is classified as frontier market with an underdeveloped equity market, but is a steadily growing corporate bond market. Historically, corporations have relied on bank credit, but we are now seeing growing interest in bond financing. These bonds are mostly traded over the counter. And the market is dominated by USD-denominated bonds, as you can see on the first slide, which offers quite attractive yields. As a result, bond issuance are almost always oversubscribed, and most investors hold them to maturity. The National Bank of Georgia, which is our central bank, acts as a main regulator, overseeing both the banking sector and the capital market. It maintains high regulatory standards with a strong focus on investor protection. Most bond issuers are from the financial sector. There is a noticeable mismatch between the structure of the overall economy and the distribution of bond issuers. You can also observe this on the second chart, which actually represents a growth opportunity for other sectors to enter the market. One very important point worth noticing, coupon payments and capital gains, both from listed bonds, are tax exempt in Georgia. This protects the investor from double taxation and reduces both tax burden and tax-related risks. In 2021-2022, a large-scale research project was conducted, funded by donor organizations and designed for public use. The study identified up to 100 potential new issuers. Investment banks are now actively working with many of these companies, and we are already seeing impressive results. We strongly believe this growth will continue in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Nino, for the information you gave regarding the Georgia's capital markets. Now I would like to turn to Mr. Ruslan Khalilov, Ruslan will give us an overview of recent trends and opportunities in Azerbaijan's capital markets, and as well as the importance of stock exchange for capital market development.
Well, thank you very much. First of all, thank you to CFA Institute and the Istanbul Society for arranging this conference. Indeed, interesting discussions, and indeed a pleasure to put, our viewpoint on the table of discussions. So, to start with the question, maybe I think I can start with the overall macro kind of picture of the Azerbaijan's economy and the capital markets, and what is the role of the stock exchange in the development of the capital markets, as well as kind of relate this a little bit to the regional perspective. Well, Azerbaijan is a small country with solid foundations, economic foundations, I think. And overall, the GDP is around 74 billion USD, and the GDP has been growing steadily by 4.5% post-pandemic period. Well, historically, the GDP was very much dependent on the oil sector, on the energy sector, but the key economic policy of the government was to shift it away from the oil dependency, and I think over the last 2-3 years we have been achieving that the more than 50% of the GDP is coming from the non-oil sector. But another look at this is that GDP is mostly being contributed by the state-owned enterprises. So be it in energy sector, in finance sector, or maybe in telecom sector, state-owned enterprises, or in infrastructure sector, state-owned enterprises are playing a key role in the GDP contribution of the country. Why am I telling this? Because this general picture is pretty much shaping the view of the capital markets in Azerbaijan, and the capital markets are primarily being dominated by the bond issues by the government and by the state-owned enterprises or government-related funds, I'd say. So overall, the debt outstanding in debt capital markets was around 10 billion USD as of the end of the 2024. And 70% of that composition comes from the government bonds, and the rest 30% comes from the private sector and government-linked enterprises. Basically, the debt outstanding to GDP ratio is around 10% in debt capital markets. For equity capital markets, I think the picture is a little bit weaker than that, and the market capitalization to GDP penetration is around 3%. I mean, compared to the benchmark countries, this is well, at least 6-7 times lower than the closer benchmarks, I would say. I'm not even talking about the North America or Western European countries. And that pretty much shapes the actions that Baku Stock Exchange, or, I mean, I can generalize this, that the stock exchanges can do, I mean, based on the existent, composition of the GDP and the capital markets. So primarily we chase to bring in more private sector companies to the debt markets and more state-owned enterprises again to the debt market. Because we believe that the risk appetite in the market, especially the risk appetite by the institutional investors in the market, are of low risk, low return, appetite. That's for the short-term future, I'd say. For the equity capital markets, we are working very hard on bringing in new issues to the market, and especially after the recent presidential decree of, privatization of the government, owned enterprises portions and bringing them to the IPO. And in fact, we had a very successful IPO like last year of the largest, bank in Azerbaijan, which is International Bank. The bank raised around $30 million from 33,000 investors in the retail market. That's by far the kind of the largest, I think, IPO funding raised in the history of the capital markets in Azerbaijan. The system is pretty much, the finance system is pretty much banking system dependent, and I think it's not just Azerbaijan. I mean, I think even Turkey has the same problem, or even the regional, countries, even ex-Soviet countries. All of these systems are pretty much banking, system dependent, and the potential demand and supply side of the market is very much accustomed to the banking products rather than the capital market products. So that also pretty much shapes the role of the stock exchange and the related authorities in the market as well, as to, I mean, on the way to bring in, new issuers and new investors to the market. you have to cultivate for the awareness of the capital markets and for the financial literacy, which is a big problem in the countries like us. I mean, that's a part of the kind of commercial endeavors that we are doing in the capital market, kind of talking to different, or not about talking, it's about the market engagement with the potential market participants to bring them more into the capital markets, to make them to use, more of the capital market products like on the DCM or the ECM side. But alternative to the commercial sides of the endeavors, I think there are two things that stock exchanges should also do. I mean, I truly believe this doesn't only apply to Azerbaijan, but to most, benchmark comparing countries, which is to build up a proper infrastructure, like be it legal or technological infrastructure, so that we make the investments in the capital markets, investment in the local companies more kind of swift and smooth from the perspective of the fundraising and from the perspective of investment making, and to build up a proper technology and trading systems so that the investments are really easy for the end investor. I mean, we always keep telling that the stock exchanges are B2B business, but we sometimes joke that it's not just B2B, it's B2B2C business. And so you have to also consider on the back of your mind that 2C side of the business, so you make it easier to the investors to come to the market. And relating this somehow to the regional perspective, I think the development or advancement of the capital market is not just about, the local market players or the local stock exchange. It's about the cooperation with the cross-border players. It's about the bringing in the institutional, players and bringing in the retail players, and technology and legal infrastructure and adjustment would serve first for that purpose, I think. For that sake, I mean, we are talking with some regional stock exchanges. I mean, we are in good contact with Borsa Istanbul. In fact, Borsa is 5% shareholder in Baku Stock Exchange. We are having connections with the Middle Eastern stock exchanges like ADX, Abu Dhabi, Dubai, and investigating the possibilities of connecting to the regional hubs like Tabadul Hub arranged by the Abu Dhabi Stock Exchange, and building up a good relation with the Central Asian countries, especially with Kazakhstan. And there are some plans to cooperate in data usage and data sales with CASE. So, I mean, to put it in a nutshell, I think there are two sides of the advancement of the capital markets. From the side of the stock exchange, that's the first one is the commercial side of the boosting supply and demand, and the second one is to develop the infrastructure and relate us to the cross-border players as much as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm also thinking that corporations among stock exchanges are very important, and thank you for the mention about this issue. Now I would like to turn to Mr. Yağız Oral to share his insights on how institutional investors view regional stock exchanges from an asset management perspective.
Thank you. So first of all, I'd like to thank you for the opportunity of being here in an amazing event, and really it was fantastic. So congratulations for that too. So I'd like to share my thoughts on how we, basically institutional investors, view the regional stock exchanges. And basically on my side, in TEB Asset Management side, I can say I can give some opinions about both for the buy side of the idea and also sell side of the idea as well, because we not only invest in regional or some developing markets stock exchanges, but also we have international mandates being part of BNP Paribas Asset Management, so we try to sell our stock exchange to global investors too. So I think there's three pillars. One is a very simple question, can I buy it? It's a very operational question, because any stock exchange we visit or anyone visits us to buy our products, the first question comes to, can we do the settlements? Is the custodians talking? Do we have any agreements? So I think this is the very first question. When we concentrate on a stock exchange, the first question we ask to the custodian of our bank is that, can we buy that stock exchange? So either the regional stock exchanges should be in contact with each other in terms of the custodian and settlement services, or they should be part of a larger settlement service, such as Euroclear or Clearstream, so that we can do the clearing and the settlements without any problem. So this is the first thing. And then, of course, I think there are two important layers. One is kind of the macro layer on this sense. When we look globally on macro sides, is that region investable compared to other regions? So political stability, macroeconomic stability and visibility, are they in place is the first question. I think the second and probably the most important question, anywhere we go, even if we want to invest or even if we want to sell our products, the first question comes about the currency stability. This is what we are trying to do here recently in this macroeconomic program in Turkey too. As long as the currency stability is not there, there is volatility, that becomes a question in institutional investors. Of course, there are hedging methods of risking that currency, but currency hedging is another cost, so it reduces your potential gains from that regional market. So that's an important pillar. And tax treatment is going to be very important. So it needs to be fair or favorable to the capital markets products or the stocks, basically. Legal protections are going to be a very important pillar. And another very important one, inexistence of capital controls. So capital should be able to travel within these regions without any problems. And one other thing maybe is the global benchmark inclusion. If that region is included in global benchmarks, that means everybody is investing. So all of the top questions are kind of answered. So it's going to be an important pillar. So this is the decision making. Then more important side is the asset manager point of view. There are some layers that need to be checked. For instance, the liquidity of the market. I think the most important thing is the liquidity, because we sometimes execute large trades. And when we do it, we need to be sure that the market is not moving significantly in that region. And trading volumes should be quite high. And another very important side is the bid-offer spreads, because if you lose so much on bid-offer spreads or even transaction costs, that becomes another negative side for the investments. Growth potential, our analysts probably spend most time on this. Is there a growth potential in this market, in this country, in this sector, or in this company? Because equity investment is pretty much all about the growth story that the industry has behind. Regulatory framework and transparent governance, another very important items. And infrastructure. So I said the settlement and custody, these kinds of things are very important, but it has to be working efficient too. So not only being in place is enough, but it has to work also efficiently. It has to be functioning well. So which brings the IT infrastructure and everything should be also at a certain level in that regions. Instead of, and there's one favorable thing for investing regional stock exchange, you could invest in a global index or invest the region itself. Investing in this region is more advantages on our side because one, we do diversification. Two, we can create alpha by picking the correct stocks in that region. So that brings the high corporate governance standards and maybe very importantly, the data and also access to data and research is going to be very important because sitting in Turkey, we cannot really cover all of the regions with all of the markets and all of the stocks. But if the data is reliable, if there are strong analysts analyzing this data and we can reach them, that would be a very important factor on investing those regions.
Thank you, Yağız, for the points you raised. And now let us move into the second part of our discussion, a more interactive discussion where I'm going to ask questions to our panelists directly. And let me start with Nino. How open is the Georgian market to foreign investment and what is being done to attract it?
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your question. Georgian capital market is very open for foreign investments. Particularly, capital movement is free, and any investor can enter and exit the market freely and easily. They access local securities through licensed brokerage companies. There are three levels of regulation on securities in capital market totally. The first level of regulation is upon central bank, which has its own ex post and ex ante regulatory tools to create a high standard and to protect investors' interests. The second and third level of monitoring and regulation is upon investment banks, which act as issuing agents, and upon us, stock exchange. We have our own standards and rules to ensure that only financially sound companies can be listed and then oversee their market activity. One very important point worth of noticing is that during past 10 years at minimum, we did not have any single case of default on corporate bonds, which maybe could signal indication that credit risk is quite low in Georgia. Now move to the yields. We saw on the screen that major part of corporate bonds are denominated in US dollars, and on those bonds, yields are around 7 to 9%, or sometimes even higher, which is quite good, especially for active portfolio manager chasing alpha, who does not have, of course, limitations on investing in below investment grade bonds, because as we also have seen, Georgia's credit rating is BB, and of course, any corporations credit rating is limited, kept with that BB rating. Adding this together, these high yields and tax exemption, what I also mentioned before, this can really create valuable addition to such portfolios for those managers who are interested in investing in frontier markets. So, to sum up everything, what we are lacking, what we are missing, the fundamentals are in place. What we are missing is mostly awareness. We need to communicate all these advantages what we have, with limitations, of course, with more broadly, more widely with international investor community to deliver, and while maintaining still our credit risk management in place.
Thank you, Nino, for your answer. And indeed, I have almost similar question to Ruslan. Are there any steps being taken to attract more institutional investors to the Baku Stock Exchange?
Well, yeah, I think institutional investors, I mean, to me, they are driving force of the capital markets. So, and we do understand the importance of attracting institutional investors to the market. So, but first we have to look into the composition of the domestic institutional investors. So I think the domestic institutional investors in Azerbaijan are primarily banks and insurance companies. And those are the, and to some extent, they're large, companies maybe. So, and if to look into the balance sheet and asset liability, composition of these, institutional investors, they're primarily interested in investing in short-term and, low risk, low return solutions, which pretty much, I think, explains the dominance of the government bonds, short maturity government bonds in the local market. So what Baku Stock Exchange is doing to even further cultivate the participation of the institutional investors, like in the short term, I would say, is to advise new issuers in the debt capital markets to be more aligned with the ALM of the institutional investors that are active in the markets. That's the first thing. But I think that is kind of a short-term solutions that we can focus on. But over the long term, the country and the local capital markets has to consider to promote the investment and asset management companies and their participation. I don't say that they are nil, but I think they are too weak for now. And the common public and the wealth management practices are not that much yet on the public securities savings or the public securities portfolio composition, but rather the public is pretty much preferring investing in real estate or in the commodities markets rather than in the public securities. So from our side, one of our key strategic initiatives is to boost the financial literacy among the common public. And for that sense, we do really, address several campaigns. I mean, the commercial, department at Baku Stock Exchange is pretty much busy with that side. And that's one of the key agenda of the central bank as well. But I think it's not just about the stock exchange, but it's also about the involved other authorities that should be interested in cultivating. And I don't say they're not, but I think over the next 3 to 5 years we will be witnessing emergence of the private pension systems in Azerbaijan, which we very much pushed for. We very much have this dialogue with the central bank and with the Ministry of Finance to kind of consider that possibility. For now, the public does not have those, I think, practices of saving on their own behalf for their kind of retirement. And that's a key element here that could push the development of asset management and investment management companies as well as with the private pension systems. And the third point is that, as Yağız just mentioned, inclusion of the securities in different indices and benchmark pools. We actively do negotiate with different investment banks and with different stock exchanges as well, as to look into the possibilities of inclusion of some low risk return bonds into the key indices, like arranged by those investment bank and asset managers. And I think the inclusion of key debt products in the global indices would indeed pull enough liquidity in the local markets and through the participation of the institutional investors as well.
Okay, thank you very much. And my last question is for Yağız. How do you see the role of institutional investment in the development of regional stock exchanges?
Okay, so the time ran out. As far as I can see, I'll try to be very
Thank you.
So institutional investors, I think, play a critical role because we are there for long-term investments, basically. We can say the pension funds, the mutual funds, and also even insurance funds, insurance companies. Once the institutional investor is in a market, first of all, the liquidity increases. We can see the trading volumes also increase. So that also attracts more investors because liquidity is an important item for an investor to interest. And also it attracts more companies. They want to be listed to be a part of this cash flow. And on the other hand, the credibility and also the trustworthiness of the exchange. Whenever we check in order to invest in a stock exchange, we check who are the other global players investing in this stock exchange. So that also brings the credibility together with it. And price discovery is another important thing. When all global institutional investors are trying to analyze a region, a simple stock or just the industry, they all make their analysis, detailed analysis, so also the price discovery becomes kind of enhanced, and that also is very essential for the efficient markets. And also institutional investors demand a wide range of products such as ETFs, derivatives, ESG-linked products that push the regional stock exchanges to innovate and expand in these offerings. Corporate governance increases because the more players come, they will be looking for more corporate governance just to comparatively look for the companies inside. And infrastructure is very important. As the investors increase infrastructure, the IT and everything has to increase as well. Now, two more very important things I'll just very briefly say. as you invest long-term in a regional stock exchange, you also increase the fuel, I can say, the economic growth as well, because it not only invests in a single company, it also invests, it's kind of an investment support to the local businesses. The capital that is required is also in the system. You help create new jobs in that region. So that's kind of another important thing. But one very important thing I'll share with just a few figures here. The long-term investors, institutional investors' ownership as the market cap. Now, that's an important figure. Some figures I took from the OECD data. Europe is between 30-40 levels. 40% roughly is in the market cap is institutional investors. In US, UK, Ireland, it is more like 60%. In Turkey case, it is gone up as much as up to, as we could calculate yesterday, 60% plus. So that's a very important figure, and just to explain how it becomes important, it brings stability to the market and it takes out the volatility. In August 5th August 2024, Japanese stock exchange was down by 12.4%, the Nikkei. The same day, Istanbul Stock Exchange opened at -10, and then institutional investors came, and it closed at -5 levels. So it took away an important side of the volatility, because we are kind of long-term investors, and daily activities, daily volatilities do not really trigger our investors. And lastly, US stock exchange, I can say collapsed, because the US media was using that word too. And 3rd and 4th April, after tariffs, S&P was down 2 days total, 10.5%. In the same 2 days, Istanbul Stock Exchange was only down by 1.4%. We have seen large accounts buying Istanbul Stock Exchange, and they were institutional investors. So reducing volatility is another important area where institutional investors support.
Thank you, Yağız. And the figures you gave are very impressive. Thank you. And so we have come to the end of our time. Thank you all for joining us for this insightful discussion on regional stock exchange. And I would like to extend my sincere thanks to our panelists for sharing their perspectives. And on behalf of CFA Society, thank you again for your time and participation. And enjoy the rest of the conference. And still we have one coffee break and one panel more.